Hey guys, welcome to the Gridiron Football Player of the Week show for the last time in 2024 as we head into 2025. Obviously, we've been pretty busy the last couple of days, not only with the state championship games, but we're getting ready for a Gridiron Football All-American Bowl game, which will be on Monday, December 30th. It'll be played at Memorial Stadium, so make sure to get your tickets. We'll talk about that game as we go through the show. I'm joined as always by Alex Allison, a Gridiron Football. Alex, welcome Cyber, because this is going to be our final time we get to do this. But we have one more Letterman jacket patch. So everybody's wondering, okay, if you've won Player of the Week, why you haven't got your Letterman jacket patch yet? That's because we'll have a ceremony at the end of the year. You'll get your Letterman jacket patch. If you're unable to make our ceremony, we'll actually just mail it to you and then give it to you in person, or give it to you in person. So either way. But Alex, we got one more of these to give out. It's kind of a somber feeling.
Bittersweet. Happy to be here, of course, just like every week. But it's too bad that we're not going to get to do this one more time after this. We'll have the Player of the Year show later, but that won't be for a while. This is the last true Gridiron Football Player of the Week for the season, and this was state championship week, of course, which means this is the ultimate smallest sample size, most important games, and we got to see some sensational performances on the brightest stage, both in Louisiana as well as in the Texas State Championships. And we'll be talking about some of the best players from both of those states winning the state championships, coming up just short in heroic performances. I'm excited to get into it.
Oh, absolutely. Like you mentioned, Alex, these are the Louisiana and Texas State Championships that we're going to talk about, and really excited about going some of these top performers, some of them that we actually saw in the Superdome. So, Alex, let's get started. I know everybody's kind of waiting on it, but Alex, kick off our list. We got 15 nominees this week. Kick us off.
At number 15, we have Parker Poteet.
Parker Poteet, yeah, really good team. Malakoff High School, middle linebacker, tight end. For him, a two-way guy. You know how we like the two-way guys playing offense and defense.
This is a great two-way game.
Yeah, he really did. I mean, 19 total tackles on defense as a linebacker. That's very impressive. But he also had a receiving touchdown on offense and really made a difference. A 27-19 win over Paradise High School. So Parker, great performance, 19 total tackles, and a receiving touchdown on offense. It kind of reminds me of, I remember J.J. Watt had like his MVP year. Everybody thought he was going to be the MVP because he was doing like 5 sacks a game and had like they would throw it in the receiving touchdown. Kind of that stat line, but by Parker. It's a pretty good candidate to kick off this list.
And this is a big one that is like a big, like the result of the game, I think matters a lot. That might not be a stat line. I think we saw in a lot of the state championship games that a lot of the linebackers end up with some ridiculous tackle number, especially if you're playing like a run-heavy team. So as impressive as 19 tackles is, it might not get here on your own, but given the result of the game in the specific score, it was clear that his presence on both sides of the field made a huge difference because it was 27-19. So he was one of the leaders, maybe the leader of a defense that held a state championship caliber offense to 19 points. And he caught a receiving touchdown in a game that ended with 8 points as the difference. So his touchdown made a huge difference in the game. So we're talking about someone making like the key plays that are integral to a team winning the state championship. That's why he's on here on both sides of the ball, 19 tackles and a critical receiving touchdown.
Absolutely. And congratulations to Malakoff as well for winning the state championship. And able to get a big win over Paradise High School as well. Anytime you can win the state championship, 15-0. They have not lost a game this year. That's big time when you go 15-0.
Yeah.
That is a big time win. And actually, they're playing their state championship game coming up. They're going to be playing 14-1. But that was, I believe, the semifinal game.
I apologize.
So yeah, no.
All that still holds though. I just was mistaken on when Texas state championship games went. I apologize, but yeah.
after we went to the state championships. And
I just kind of assumed we were done.
Yeah.
Everyone was done. Yeah, you don't need to play any more football. We're good. We're in December now. No,
right.
but that's fair.
Well, Alex, we're going to stay in, I believe, in the state of Texas too, as we go to our number 14 player. Actually, we'll go back to Louisiana. Actually,
no, we have a couple of players first. As you can tell, this is a really, we all very well organized week of Player of the Week today. Today with number 14, we have a familiar face and a familiar name, Jonathan D'Artes.
How can I screw that one up, Alex? Of course,
how could you forget John?
How can I forget John D'Artes? I mean, after we called his name all year long, and Jonathan D'Artes, state championship, final game, legacy game, right, against Ouachita Christian, a team that they lost to in the state championship 2 years ago. Well, he was able to get it done. He completed 8 of 11 passes for 82 yards, 2 touchdowns. But here's what the damage was. It was on the ground. It was a Prep Classic record in the Superdome. 47 carries. That's like Derrick Henry, Alabama numbers. 47 carries, 253 yards, 2 more touchdowns. They won the football game 33-21 to clinch the Division IV Select State Championship. And just what a year that he's had. I mean, I think he should be Mr. Gatorade, Gatorade Football Player of the Year in Louisiana. 177 total touchdowns in his career. That's a record this year alone. 4,689 yards, 67 total touchdowns for Jonathan D'Artes, and no fumbles. I think that's the most impressive stat this year for D'Artes. So, of course, we end the year. We have to mention Jonathan D'Artes on this list, as we did beginning of the year.
Yeah, we'll talk about Player of the Year in a few weeks. And he, of course, this is the final chance. He did not win Player of the Week. However, whenever we talk about people that will make that list and will be eligible to be voted for, he will be the first name added because he has had that kind of season. He held the ball something like 360 times in the season and fumbled 0 times. 67 total touchdowns. But of course, today we're just talking about the game. And he broke some records of his own there. 47 carries. I was lucky enough to watch all of them live on the field. And that first drive, he held the ball like 11 times. He had 11 carries. Of course, didn't fumble. Scored the touchdown on a drive that lasted 8 minutes. And that set the tone for the entire game. And a really good win, a 33-21 win over Ouachita Christian to win the state championship, the only thing he hadn't done in his career. That's the thing that stands out. To me, it's his vision. Everyone loves the explosive play, but he was playing a team in Ouachita Christian that was able to kind of keep that to a minimum. The yardage total wasn't that crazy today in this game. But it was the ability to, on 3rd and 2, 2nd and 2, 4th and 1, always get the extra yard. Always get the short yardage, always find the crevice to get in and not take a huge hit and keep himself upright and keep himself durable, healthy, not fumbling, so consistent. That's so hard to do. He did it all season, and it earned them a state championship in a game that will be living in the state history books for a very long time.
Oh, absolutely. Just an incredible season. I've covered a lot of Louisiana high school football, but this season is as good as I've seen by one individual player. He'll definitely get his chance for Gridiron Football Player of the Year. Number 13, we also go to another Louisiana quarterback on our list at number 13. This time he was actually on the other end of things, but this is a guy we talked about a whole lot on the show as well.
Yeah, you may have heard of him before. Number 13 is Elijah Haven.
Yeah, Elijah Haven, just the number 1 quarterback in the country in the 2027 class. I think a lot of people have heard about him more. At least the colleges have heard about him, that's for sure. He's getting a lot of attention, a lot of looks. And Haven, he did what he could in a big game, and it was intriguing because a lot of people got to really see him play for the first time, whether it was on TV or whether it was just in the Superdome or whatever. But yeah, he was 25 for 37. Throwing the football, 300 yards, 2 touchdowns, also had 32 carries, 153 yards rushing and 2 more touchdowns. That was all of the touchdowns scored by was a Haven pass in that football game. Over 400 yards of 450 yards of offense, 4 touchdowns, and they still came up short, 31-28 to Catholic New Iberia, which we'll talk about a little bit later on the show as well. But Elijah Haven, he showed what kind of star he is, and why he'll be a force to be reckoned with the next couple of years, even though it came in the loss.
We'll talk about the other quarterback in what was one of the best quarterback duels of the entire weekend for the Louisiana Prep Classic a little bit. But for now, let's talk about Eli, who threw the ball 37 times and ran the ball 32 times, doing his best Jonathan D'Artes impression, either throwing or running the ball almost 70 times in one game, which is completely ridiculous. It's just, it was... I got a chance to watch him in the Jamboree at the beginning of the year, and he looked unbelievable there, outdueling Emil Picarella, who's a really good 4-star senior quarterback for UI. They ended up losing that game because they didn't have confidence in their kicker. Well, now I got to see him in the state championship game. He's somehow so much better. He's so much better now than he was at the beginning of the year. I didn't know it was possible. He's unbelievable. All of the legends, all of the stories, it's all true. He is that good. Again, a game I was lucky enough to be on the field for. Throwing the ball, he was electric. Running the ball, he was great. He was the entire offense. He had almost all of their carries. He, of course, threw the ball every time. He was that team. And they almost won the state championship because of him. And they lost because they didn't have confidence in their kicker. So, and now we've come full circle. But he's got 2 more cracks at it. He's got 2 more shots. And it's hard to imagine that he's not just going to keep growing. He still has 2 more years to go before we start seeing him on the college football field, but he is as good as people say he is.
Well, I know he's got a great future, and we'll definitely talk about him a lot more. And I'm sure he's going to be a candidate as well for Gridiron Football Player of the Year. But we're going to go to a quarterback in Texas, not only from another state, but he was actually victorious out of this one. Actually in the semifinal game, but Alex, tell us who is at number. I think that will be at
number 12.
12. Yep.
At number 12, we have Carson Shute.
Yeah, so Carson Shute from Shiner, Texas. So they've actually played yesterday, and they actually lost the state championship game. But this was actually the game that got them to that point. Carson, yeah, I mean, he kind of did like his Jonathan D'Artes impersonation here because he only threw the ball 94 yards, but he ran the ball 20 times for 258 yards and 4 touchdowns in a 41-33 win over Bremen, Texas. That's kind of that D'Artes numbers, right? I mean, he's going to carry the football. He's going to run. Great athlete for Shiner, and he showed it off. I mean, 258 yards rushing, 4 touchdowns. I mean, those touchdowns were needed. It was more of a higher scoring game, 41-33. So they really needed all those 4 touchdowns, and it showed at the end of that football game. But able to get past to the state championship, they eventually fell to Munster, the Munster Hornets in Munster, Texas. But yeah,
and we'll talk about them later too.
Yeah, absolutely. But great win to get to that point and a great performance. And Alex, your thoughts on their number 12?
This week in a season that has felt very running back heavy, the entire season. When we talk about Player of the Week each week, we're like, oh, and here are the 8 running backs that ran for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. This week, the state championship week in Louisiana, the semifinals for Texas, was dominated by the dual threat quarterback. All of these games, it felt like the best performances were by quarterbacks who dominated both through the arm, with their arms and with their legs. And Carson Shute is one of the many examples we'll talk about. We've already talked about Haven. We've already talked about D'Artes. Shute's another example of one of these quarterbacks. They're winning games because they're just unstoppable. You try to stop them through the air, they're going to kill you with their legs. He was that guy. He was more the D'Artes kind of spectrum of this, where he's maybe closer to a running back that can throw a bit than a true dual threat quarterback. But he is very threatening, and they ended up earning a state championship appearance because of that performance. Quite a good performance. Up next, we have the other person who dueled against Elijah Haven. At number 11, we have the other quarterback from that game, Luke Landry.
Yeah, he was on the winning side of that one, Alex. I know Elijah Haven was like, man, how can the quarterback account for 453 yards and 4 touchdowns and lose? Well, it's because the other quarterback he was going against, Luke Landry, is a great quarterback himself for Catholic New Iberia. The lefty was able to get the job done right over the righty. 19 for 35, 226 yards, 2 touchdowns. Also did some damage with his legs, 11 carries, 72 yards, and a 31-28 win over Dunham. But Luke Landry was in total command of that offense. He knew where to throw the football, but he was like Harry Houdini, man. He made some plays. I don't know how he was able to make them. Whether he was about to get sacked, he dumps it off to Owen Morris, his running back, or he was able to escape it and just run for 5-10 yards, whatever. But he did a lot of damage with his arm and his legs, and he's pretty much the reason why they won the state championship, because they beat the number 1, number 2, and number 3 seeds to get there. So Alex, Luke Landry up next on our list.
One of the best games I've had the pleasure of watching live in person. This Catholic New Iberia and Dunham game was amazing, and it was largely amazing because of the play of those two quarterbacks. I know Landry's numbers don't pop off the screen the same way Haven's do from this game, but he was incredible. I mean, you put it perfectly. He was Houdini out there, where he should be sacked and he just finds Owen Morris. He just finds a receiver over the middle, or he runs himself and gets the third down conversion. That's what it was like. I know the completion percentage sounds kind of whatever or whatever. It doesn't matter. This was their game because of him. And the Calvary Baptist game was theirs because of him. And the Newman game because of him. He was the guy, the senior, seasoned veteran leader leading them to the helm. And the accolades kept coming. You know, this was a group of seniors in a team that had never, like the players on the team, I mean, had never won a playoff game before this season. And so they were the 7 seed. So we weren't even talking. We thought they were good, but we weren't even talking about them as one of these teams that was going to be making a run. We thought, okay, they'll probably lose to Newman, and if not, they might not even get to Newman. I don't remember who they played in the first round, but none of them will win a playoff game. Who knows?
Northlake.
And then, yeah, that does sound right. So they beat Northlake, and we're like, they're not going to beat Newman. Oh, they crushed Newman, and then they beat Calvary in inexplicable fashion. And then this game. What a run for them. State championship. And another notch in Landry's belt as he gets sent off, a finalist for Gridiron Football Player of the Week. At number 10, moving on to another person from these Louisiana State Championships, from another one of these earlier games. This was on Thursday of the week. We have Jaheim Williams.
Yeah, Jaheim Williams, thanks for making me look like a fool, my man, because you definitely made me look like a fool for South Blackman. So I'm gonna say I'm gonna admit when I'm wrong, and y'all definitely proved me wrong. I did pick y'all to win the semifinal game. I did pick y'all to win that game, but y'all proved me wrong every other time. Yeah, congratulations. To really the Hurricanes, the South Blackmans. It's been a long time coming for him. Jaheim Williams was the reason that he was the guy that they lean on. And you saw on offense, 15 carries, 45 yards. But the stat line doesn't really tell its story, because he had 45 yards rushing, 69 yards receiving.
This is a really low scoring game.
Yeah, he made the impact plays. He had a rushing touchdown. He had 2 receiving touchdowns. And he also had 5 tackles and an interception on defense. The game was 20-7, I believe, over Haynesville.
Yeah,
20-7 over Haynesville, and he scored all 3 touchdowns in the state championship game. Like, he was the difference in this football game. Jaheim was runner-up for Gridiron Football Player of the Week earlier this week. He actually might be a candidate for Gridiron Football Player of the Year because he's been a candidate a couple of times. And Jaheim Williams, a very impressive stat line. Anytime he scored 3 touchdowns on offense, scored an interception on defense, of course, when it's 1A two-way. You're expected to play both ways, and that's what Jaheim did, and he put on a show. He put on a clinic against the favorite Haynesville Tornadoes, but it was the Hurricanes prevailing over the Tornadoes in the battle of the natural disasters, I guess. The weather,
the Cyclone War.
Game. Yep, that's right. But Jaheim Williams, he was the difference in order for South Plaquemines to win their first state championship since 2009.
Yeah, Jaheim Williams looked really, really good in this game. I know the yardage numbers looked pretty unspectacular, but this was a very low-scoring game. Like I said, it was 20-7. He scored all 3 of their touchdowns. So even though they kind of bundled up on the ground, he still made his presence known through the air as well as on defense, getting an interception that kind of put the game away. Haynesville was already down by 2 scores, but it was like late in the game, and it basically sealed things, kind of slammed the door shut. It was a great performance. He looked awesome. Whether it was running the ball, catching the ball, playing defense, playing both ways. This is a smaller school, right? These were the Division IV state championship. It was one of those games. And when you have that, yeah, you have a lot fewer players. You have to play both ways. And so for him to do what he did on offense and also be one of the leaders on that defense and come away with a game-sealing interception, yeah, this is especially in a game where we went into this bracket all thinking, well, is it Haynesville or is it the field of 27 other teams? And it ended up being the field, but it ended up specifically being South Plaquemines, and that's largely because of him. So congratulations to him. Congratulations to that entire team for their state championship victory. At number 9, we have a guy for a game that I was not lucky enough to be able to watch. However, I've heard legends of this performance of a team and a player that I am fairly familiar with. That is number 9, Jackson Furman.
Yeah, Jackson Furman definitely got Nicholls State fans excited, the Colonel fans excited with his performance. And, I was talking to Grant on his show, Friday Nights in the Bayou, but this performance reminded me a whole lot of Daniel Beal from Catholic last year when he won state. It was like basically his final swan song, right? His final chance to really put a stamp on his legend, at the school. And he did. Anytime you lead a team to their first state championship since 1966, the dome wasn't even built back then yet. This was the first time they made the Superdome, and they made it count for the first time because Jackson Furman, he was unstoppable. 17 for 28, 233 yards, 5 touchdowns. But a lot of those touchdowns came early in the football game too. Also has 30 yards rushing. They won the football game. It was definitely the most shocking result of the weekend, 42-0 over Ruston, when a lot of people thought Ruston was actually the favorite in that football game. A lot of people to win that football game. A lot of people thought it was going to be a blowout. It was going to be Ruston that was going to be the one that did the blow. He called it. I had Central in the Superdome. I had them going to the state championship, and I still had them losing to Ruston. So a lot of people did not – I think Central fans didn't even expect this to happen. But it was a great time for Jackson Furman to show why he was one of the best quarterbacks in the state. I know a lot of people are talking about how their offense has maybe struggled in the last couple of weeks. But when they needed it, when Jackson Furman had to put on this A-plus performance, he did so there. 5 touchdowns, 233 yards passing. Great final performance for the Central legend now, and hopefully he gets make his stance for the Colonels in the Southland Conference coming up.
Yeah, Nicholls has themselves a guy, and clearly you go to Nicholls, you're a commit to Nicholls, you're a pretty good high school quarterback. So he's had a really good season. He's had a really good career. But what I will say is I was shocked by this performance, given the 2 games I got to watch of him, and 2 games aren't an entire sample size. But I will be the first one to admit, I'll eat my crow. I like my crow medium well, personally. I will be the first to admit I did not think this was in the cards at all. Not one. I was the guy that didn't just say Central wasn't going to beat Ruston. That didn't just say Ruston was going to win fairly comfortably. I didn't think Central would score a point. I didn't think they would. Honestly, I didn't outright say that last week. I did not think they would score a point. I watched that offense against Neville, and I thought, no chance. No chance. Ruston's defense is that good, and I think it will be a problem. And I was wrong. I was just very wrong. I wasn't lucky enough to get to watch this game, but from what I heard, this was, and the stat line shows it, he was unstoppable. He was just completely unstoppable through the air. And you throw 5 touchdowns in the state championship game, and yeah, it doesn't matter what school you go to, whether it's
deep touchdown pass, second play of the game.
Yeah.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It doesn't matter whether you go to Catholic or John Curtis with your 28 state titles, although you wouldn't throw 5 touchdowns at John Curtis, but you get the point. Whether it be Catholic or John Curtis, or I don't care how storied your program is, you're going to be a legend of your school if you throw 5 touchdowns and win a state championship in the Superdome. Not to mention, oh right, this is Central, a team that hadn't been there since 1966. It was their first game in the Superdome ever. And he did this. Yes, he's going to be a legend. He is awesome, and he showed it. The Nichols commit, making all those Colonel fans very proud. This was a shocking outcome, and he played the game of his life. And some fellow legends that will be there alongside him, enshrined in the Central Hall of Fame for football, will be everybody on the other side of the field. All of those players for defense, every single one of them, because number 8 for us is the entire Central defense.
Yeah, like usually you think, okay, it's player of the week. Well, I guess Coach James Shire was the one that first got to say, like,
broke the seal.
More of a group, because he nominated the offensive line group more than a couple of times this year. And like, you know what? If the entire group is deserving of it, because we're not going to talk about the offensive line, or one offensive lineman winning it. So if you're going to mention an offensive lineman, just mention a group. And defense, this was one of the greatest defensive performances I've ever seen from a high school football game. Central's defense, I mean, we actually in this game when we talked about it against Ruston, I knew that Central's defense was going to keep them in the game. So
I thought that would be the case too. Yeah,
I'm not too shocked their defense played well. I was shocked how dominant they really were in this football game. They gave up. This is not like if it was first half total yardage, like that would be impressive. Like that would be like,
really impressive.
That's all they did in the first half. No, that's all they did in the football game. 90 total yards for Ruston's offense. They didn't even hit 100 yards. That's actually the fewest amount of yards of the total offense in Prep Classic history.
Wow. Yeah.
Was the lowest before that, and West Monroe was able to force that. But this time it was Central able to do that. 90 total yards of offense, and we give up 4 first downs the entire game. 4 first downs, 1 for 8 on third down, 4 turnovers, and actually, if it was just Central's defense, don't even put Jackson Furman on offense. You just put the defense out on the field. Central would have still won the football game 7-0 because DK Mays had a scoop and score. The Houston signee, a scoop and score to put them up 14-0 early in the football game. It was ridiculously how dominant Central's defense really was. 42-0 shutout to, I think that's the favorite number from this defense. I'm going to tell you 0 points given up on the scoreboard. And what you just mentioned, what we just talked about, a team that was the underdogs in the state championship game.
Yeah, I got to see the Central defense play against Zachary, where they give 3 points. It was in the rain, but still, that's Zachary we're talking about. DeVicka were up in the next week, then proceeded to drop 50-something on one of the best defenses in the state in Catholic. So, yeah, that says something. Then I got to see them play Neville. It held them to, I believe it was 13 points. And also win the game with a non-offensive touchdown. So that's pretty good. They were the defensive front especially, but the entire defense is psychopathic. That's the word. That is the word to describe them. And you're right. If you had told me Central, I didn't think Central would win the game, but if you had told me Central was going to win the game, I thought it would have to be a defensive performance that looked like this. And including the non-offensive touchdown, including the 4 turnovers, they might have needed all of it. They didn't. It helped. I think part of the factor of Jackson Furman throwing 5 touchdowns and only having 200-something yards of offense, yards passing, is that he had some short fields.
Yeah.
When you force 4 turnovers and the rest of the offense is completely inert, just completely inert. I mean, how? Ruston was really good.
Yeah.
There's a reason everyone thought they were going to win the state title this year, myself included. Like, they crushed Zachary, they beat Destrehan, an awesome Destrehan team. They, they had those close losses to Neville and to Ash, and this team was awesome. The offense was awesome. We're talking about Ahmad Hudson and their quarterback Brantley and everyone in between. 0 points. 90 yards of total offense. I mean, that is watching, Western Kentucky play Alabama level of offense versus defense. That's a cupcake game. That's what that's supposed to look like. Not the state championship against one of the most well-respected programs and well-renowned programs in the entire state of Louisiana. The team that most people thought was maybe at worst the 1B to Edna Carr's 1A for the best team in the state of Louisiana going into the year. That's the team we're talking about. That's the Ruston Bearcats. That team got held to double-digit yards of offense. This Central defense is insane. It's one of the best units we've ever seen, I think. That's the kind of air you talk about when you discuss that kind of performance on that stage. The reason we didn't give it to a specific person is because, well, when you dominate time of possession like that and you dominate the play count like that, and Ruston is 3 and out, 4 first downs, you don't put up crazy numbers. KD Mays was awesome. He had 4 tackles because he was only on the field so much. DK Mays had the scoop and score, but he had 3 tackles outside of that. We probably would have interviewed them if they won. Probably would have, if I had to guess, we probably would have given the quarterback jacket to DK probably for the scoop and score. If we were going to put one kid on there, it would probably be DK for the scoop and score. But it was the entire defense. It was a team effort, and it was unbelievable. It was truly unbelievable to witness for the people that were there.
Yeah, it was.
And so at number 7, moving on to one that I don't have quite the same emotional connection to, just because we're going back to the state of Texas. However, still an elite performance. We have Jabari Thornton.
Yeah, well, Vega High School in Texas, they got a big state championship game coming up on Friday, playing Carthage. And if you know anything about Texas high school football, Carthage is pretty good in Texas. So that's going to be a big-time state championship game as last 2 weeks. They got so many divisions. You thought 8 state championships in Louisiana was something. They got about 15 or whatever. So they had 2 straight weeks of state championship games. So that's why it's kind of thrown off. Some state championships were last week, some were not. So it's kind of all thrown off. So Jabari Thornton, he's actually a really good receiver. He's a 2026 receiver. He's got a lot of attention already, like Baylor and some of those schools have shown him. Arkansas, some of those schools have shown him interest. He's still got another year. But to get them to that championship game, he had 5 catches, 147 yards, and 2 touchdowns that won the football game, 62-35 over Wimberley High School. And wide receivers. If you make this list as a receiver, you're going to really have to go off, and that's what he did with 2 touchdowns on 5 catches, 167 yards. That's definitely Gridiron Football Player of the Week performance, especially that gets you to the championship game in Jerry's world.
Yeah, that's the kind of performance. I believe, I don't remember his name, but the running back for the same team was nominated as well, and it was kind of a question of which one did you want to give it to. But to me, having a performance like this as a receiver is really impressive. That it's not quite the Randy Moss game, but it kind of feels that kind of a performance when you're averaging 30 yards a reception, and you're just every time they threw the ball your way, it's chunk play, and you start pouring it on, right? So, again, we didn't get a chance to watch this game, but you can kind of imagine what a 62-38 win where this guy has 147 yards on 5 catches looks like, and it's bomb play. He probably had 2 or 3 of those that were back-breaking in a semifinal game. That's tough. That's really, really impressive. So congratulations to him. Congratulations to everybody at La Vega as they have that big state championship game coming up. At number 6, we're going to go back to the state of Louisiana for another one of the Saturday state championship games, those big 5A state championship games, Division I, as we go to John Johnson, who earned 100 votes.
Yeah, this is a roller coaster of a game for John Johnson. I call this game the semifinal game against Catholic High, again to the state championship game. And this game, yeah, a little bit of everything. I mean, it was a Jameis Winston type of. I mean, you got a little bit of the highs, you got the lows, but it doesn't matter because then the car really put it on Alexandria. 53-8 was a running clock game. Did not have that in my bingo card for that football game. Did not think it was going to be a running clock early in the fourth quarter, but that's what it was. And John Johnson, he's led probably, I would say, the best high school football team I've seen in Louisiana. And I've been covering about 10 years. I mean, I think this is the best high school football team in Louisiana that I've seen. But he's been just better and better as the season's going along. After starting last year as a sophomore, he's taken those reins and has really improved this game for his junior season. But 10 for 17, 197 yards, 2 touchdowns, both to Teron Francis, the LSU signee. He threw 4 interceptions. And so you're thinking to yourself, okay, why did he win player of the game? Well, he also ran 19 carries, 161 yards, and 3 touchdowns. So he had 5 touchdowns overall. So 5 touchdowns on offense, had the 4 picks, but I'm not going to give him any harsh comments or criticism with the interceptions. It reminds me of if you ever played NCAA 25 or Madden 25 and you're up by like 50 and you try to scramble around and just like try to heave it deep and say, why not? Try something crazy. That's what happened in that football game. They're up by so much early on that usually a quarterback tries to do different things and see what they can get away with because you get a little bored sometimes. It's crazy saying it in the state championship game, but when you're up by that much that early on, that's pretty much what happened there. But still, great performance from John Johnson. 5 touchdowns, over 300 yards of total offense. He showed why he was the captain of this team. He led the ship. He had the keys of Ferrari and didn't crash it. That's pretty much what he had for John Johnson. But great congratulations to John winning state championship and making our list where he's definitely deserved it. Gridiron Football Player of the Week list.
I think it's part of the mystique about a team like this is that I think the quarterback sometimes doesn't get enough credit.
Yeah.
It's easy to say, oh, well, of course anyone would be good if you had 3 Division I wide receivers to throw to. And, like, a certain amount of that is valid, right? Teron Francis, and you got an LA Tick commit, a Tulane commit to throw to, and offensive line and dominant defense and all that. But he's really good. I think his talent as a runner sometimes gets underappreciated, and I think this game kind of showed what he can do. I don't know what he'll play at the college level, but he's really, really good. Whatever he does,
he's got another year.
He's still got another year behind him, in front of him, to be able to prove it even more so. So he's awesome, and I think sometimes we don't talk about it enough because he's not this fast. So I want to couch my words very carefully when I say this. But he feels like a high school version. He plays in a similar way to a high school version of Lamar Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
That that's the kind of speed that he has. The agility and the pocket scramble ability that Jackson has relative to the high school level. I want to clarify that because it's not Jaden Daniels kind of speed. It's not the straight line, you're going to outrun everyone kind of speed. He's very quick, and he's going to flash from person to person and get those rushing touchdowns because of that. So he was the leading rusher and the guy that threw for 200 yards, nearly 200 yards. So he totaled 350 yards of offense, 5 touchdowns, the 4 picks. Don't care. When you're up 21-0 halfway through the first quarter, don't care.
Yeah.
You hit the nail on the head. It's the game was so sometimes you get games like this that are just so utterly uncompetitive so early on. They just fundamentally break as football games. They don't work anymore. And you're watching a product that doesn't look like football. And that's what this game seemed to have been. Again, I didn't get to watch it, but that's what this was like. It was not close. And by the time you get to the end of the first quarter and it's 28-0 or whatever, and you're like, well, I don't know. Let's just see what happens. You just kind of have to run the clock out. And, then he throws 4 picks, whatever. Some of them were his fault. Some of them were just, they still scored 53 points. I mean,
with that.
with 4 picks. So, the Jameis Winston experience, but I don't think Ed McCarr will be moving on to Dorian Thompson-Robinson anytime soon.
No, and this was that was one game. He's done a great job protecting the football. It's just so.
And it was the game where he still had 350 yards of offense and 5 touchdowns.
Right.
Yeah, I'm new to this. I never got the chance to watch Dakar live this season, but I got to watch Ash. And if a team did that to Ash, they might just be the best team on the planet.
Yeah.
Might trot them out and beat the Saints next week for all the hell we know. No, on a serious on a serious note, let's move on to number 5. Going back to the state of Texas, we have Blake Thomas with 147 votes.
Yeah, Blake Thomas, was outstanding, and they lost to Vandegrift, and I believe that was the. I'm trying to see if that was a state championship game or the semifinal game. I thought it was the semifinal game last week.
We have 3 more games to play. It's January.
Yeah. So it was a state championship. It was a semifinal game. They lost to Vandegrift. Vandegrift's a really good football team in Texas, especially the one of the bigger names, I guess, of the late in terms of state championships. But Blake Thomas was fantastic, despite in a losing effort. Right, 315 yards passing, 2 touchdowns. So a dual threat as well. Great quarterback for Summer Creek High School. 315 through the air, 2 touchdowns, 175 yards on the ground. Also ran for another touchdown. Yeah, that's ridiculous. I mean, yards of offense in one game.
He had 490 total yards of offense and 4 touchdowns, and they lost the game.
And they lost the game in 3 touchdowns, and lost 34-31. So, unfortunately, that was a winning performance by Blake Thomas. Unfortunate, but great season for him. Had a great season this year for Summer Creek. They come up a little bit short. I know it's deflating, but he had himself a great year and gave Summer Creek a great chance of winning a state championship this year in Texas.
That's the Elijah Haven stat line, right? Yeah, very similar stat line where he dropped nearly 500 yards of total offense in the game they ended up losing. We don't have it's not as much to talk about because we didn't have a chance to watch the game, so we don't have as much of the context, but it's a semifinal game in Texas. I don't know how much context you need, where a guy dropped 500 yards of offense practically and didn't win the game somehow. It certainly wasn't his fault. I think he did everything he could do, and they came up just short, unfortunately. But congratulations to him. Congratulations to everybody there at Summer Creek for a great season. And even though, of course, they don't get a chance to play in Cherry World at the very end, what a performance, what a game, and what a season for that team. Moving on, we're going to be staying in the state of Texas. At number 4, we have Kason Carney.
Kason Carney is a very interesting story. That's a Munster, Texas quarterback. Remember, they were able to get the win over Groover, and they also defeated one of the players that was earlier on this list as well. And then, Kason Carney, a great story. He was actually a water boy for the team growing up, and now he's playing quarterback for Munster, Texas, and he's have a chance to lead his team to a state championship. But Kason was 9 for 14, 151 yards and 2 touchdowns. And then we get to I don't know why all these quarterbacks want to run the football this past week, but I think that's just been the deal this week.
This was the week of the dual threat quarterback.
Yeah. Hey, just run it. You have no more games left, really. Not much games left. I'll leave it all on the line. Just run the football more than probably they ran it this year. But 19 carries, 158 yards, and 3 touchdowns
Final score 49-26 over Groover, Texas. But Munster, Texas. I mean, Casey Carney. I mean, that's another performance when you have close to about 350, close to 300 yards of offense, 151 through the air, 158 on the ground. Five touchdowns. Nothing to sneeze at. And this is our highest ranked player from the state of Texas last week that makes a Gridiron Football Player of the Week list.
And deservingly so. All these players were great, and they all had really good performances. We were talking about a Munster team that ended up winning the state championship, and he had a pure dual threat performance. You know, we have two different sides of it sometimes, where you have like the Luke Latree performance, where you're mostly a passer, but you have some pretty good rushing numbers too. Or you have the Jonathan Dartez performance, where you're a running back in QB's clothing, and you throw 10 passes. This was a little bit more mixed, right? You had 150-something yards rushing, 150-something yards passing, somewhere along those lines, and you have 5 touchdowns. It's hard to stop a balanced attack like that, and that's why Munster ends up winning the state championship game. So congratulations to him. Very well-deserved performance, hitting number 4 on this list. At number 3, we go back to the state of Louisiana.
That's what they beat. Shiner, Texas, in the summer. Yep, and that was hard to it. So
yeah, so that was that must have been a very fun duel to have watched. Versus Casey Carney. At number 3, we're moving back to the state of Louisiana for the final time to talk about a few of these games. At number 3, we have Cy Austin with 709 votes.
Yeah, playing for the Franklinton Demons, and man, Franklinton, you were there. You covered that game. That was close, and we knew about like how close Franklinton has won a lot of these games, and they've been on kind of the thrill seeker's edge. So that some of these wins, but it looked like it was going to happen again. Unfortunately, this time, you play with fire. Sometimes you get burnt, and that's what happened with Franklinton there. But great season for Franklinton, and a big reason is this young man, Cy Austin. He was a player of the game despite a losing effort. 30 carries, 147 yards. 3 touchdowns, also 2 catches for 19 yards. They lost that state championship game to Cecilia. But I tell you what, man, I mean, Cy Austin, I've seen him a couple of times this year play. Shows you how deep the running back position really is in the state of Louisiana, because this kid definitely deserves an opportunity to play at some level, at the next level. And Cy Austin, I mean, he's one of those guys you want to look at as a Franklinton legend. I mean, it's been a couple of years since Franklinton has been this good. For him to kind of like lead this team on the ground and have that type of game, and including which was the go-ahead touchdown, it looked like for Franklinton too. Unfortunately, come up on the losing side of it, but this was certainly a guy that's really helped build that or bring back that championship mindset back to Franklinton.
We talked about Jacob Crane a lot last week because he was the winner of Player of the Week last week. Mm-hmm. We see Franklinton continuing to support their players in these ballots, as Cy Austin almost became, I think, what would have been the only school to have 2 different players win if he had won.
Well, this year we had
this year.
Westwood last year in Texas.
Okay. So. But this year, I think if Cy had pulled it out, and of course he came close, finished 3rd, he would have been the only. They would have been the only school to have gotten 2 players. But I had back-to-back weeks as well, and these were 2 really good performances. You know, even though Jacob Crane was one that won last week, of course Austin is a huge part of this offense every week, and we got to see it in person, where this Franklinton team. Yeah, this is a team that lives on the knife's edge. They were 7-0 in one-score games going into this game. They ended up coming short this time, but it's not because of the performance of that backfield. Whether it was Crane or Austin, Cy Austin was awesome in this game. And he looked the part. Whether it was throwing the ball where they averaged like 9 yards a pass, or running the ball where he averaged like 8 yards a carry, he drops 3 touchdowns, has 300 yards rushing. That is an amazing performance where. Against a team that we'll talk about in a little bit in Cecilia, where they needed those points and they were driving down the field at the end of the game, and all of us, they ended up coming up short, but all of us had the feeling in the back of our head of this is exactly where Franklinton wants them. Doesn't matter how good the Cecilia offense is, doesn't matter how good this team is, they keep pouring it on people. You have the ball, you're only down by 3 at the end of the game, you've gotten your pace of the game, go win it. And the reason we feel like that is because Cy Austin is the engine behind that offense. When this pace slows down and he starts grinding out carry after carry after carry, and he gets to 3 bills, that's a game Franklinton usually wins. They came up short, largely because of a guy we'll talk about in a little bit. But first, congratulations to Cy Austin and that entire Franklinton Demon community and their team for an amazing performance, an amazing season. Nothing can't hang your head about this.
No.
What a season for them. Moving on to number 2, a larger-than-life performance by a larger-than-life human being. We have Richard Anderson.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty hard. Yeah,
He apologized. He had almost 1,600 votes, 1,595.
Pretty hard to miss him. I mean, he stands out a little bit. I mean, 6'3", 330 pounds. And he can move. Like, I don't want to be a part. I don't want to be a part of that. Just give somebody else the ball. I don't even want to touch the football there. But Richard Anderson, I really thought. I mean, John Johnson was deserving of the MVP. I definitely get it. He was definitely deserving of it. I mean, if you want to split the trophy in half, I mean, I would also give it to Richard Anderson too. He was totally dominant because you knew that they would have to play Ash or that play JT Lindsay and big part of it was to slow him down. And Richard Anderson had that task, and man, he lived up to it. 7 total tackles, 5 solo, 1 sack, and 6 TFLs as well as the interior defensive lineman. Also forced a safety on JT Lindsay too. So he was pretty much unblockable the entire game. I've seen a lot of great defensive linemen come to the state. As far as the performance goes, though, that might have been the most dominant performance I've seen from an interior defensive lineman. He was totally unblockable. And if you're an LSU fan, you should be really excited, and you're hoping that you cling on to him next year. He's an LSU commit, but he's still a junior for next year. He's got 1 more year. But one of the stars of the 2026 class I will be talking a whole lot about next year.
This dude's a stud. He was unstoppable against Ash. I think he heard a lot of people talking a lot of stuff about JT Lindsay and how, is the carry record going to get broken by JT Lindsay? Ended up being broken by someone else. But is JT Lindsay going to do it this year against this defensive line? Because when everyone says that, the corollary is, they think they can run on us. They think JT Lindsay's going to have 45 carries against this defense. He does not want to be tackled by me 45 times. I promise you that. This offensive line does not want to block against me 45 times. I promise you that. And Richard Anderson made his presence felt. He made his presence felt a lot. You have the safety. You have 6 tackles for loss. He was just living in the backfield. He set up a room there. He had a hammock. He was chilling the entire time. And it was completely unstoppable. There's no other way of putting it. So John Johnson won MVP, and we talked about him on this list already. Both of them were super deserving, but who's going to tell him no?
I wouldn't tell him that. I can guarantee you that. I'm not going to tell him anything. And there were a couple of times like, come on, Richard, take it a little easy on your future teammate. You don't have to throw him
right. I mean, in a year, JT will be seasoned at LSU. He'll be there for a year, and Richard will come along, and he'll be like, "Oh God, no! Please don't make me practice against this dude." He has flashbacks from this game. No, I'm sure JT's gonna have a great career. He had a great career at Ash. Obviously, as much as it ended on a bit of a sour note because of this man. So congratulations to him and to Carr, of course, hoisting the state championship trophy. Congratulations to that entire school for getting 2 finalists for this week as well. Finally, at number 1.
Last one.
If you've been paying attention to the show and to what I was talking about with Cy Austin earlier, you might know who we're about to talk about. Finally, a man we've talked about week after week who has not won Player of the Week despite being the finalist 5 times. Who knows?
Seemingly, there were times last year he was a finalist as well. So I couldn't have thought of a more fitting player to win our Grand Football Final Player of the Week out.
For the Louisiana State Championships, well deserving. At number 1, we have Diesel Solari with 2,826 votes, which is enough to get it done this week.
Well, if Shaq reaches out to the team, to the Cecilia team, and says, Diesel, you have my nickname, so you're going to have to live up to it. And his performance, and as far as his legend, is probably as big as Shaq is. So that should tell you right there. But Diesel Solari's been on this list, I don't know how many times. He was a Gridiron Football Player of the Year finalist last year. And I'm glad to say that he finally won the award with where last. I mean, I go to the gun, had to go to the final buzzer, right? Got it. He finally got our Gridiron Football Player of the Week. Was a great performance by Diesel, especially after losing the state championship game last year to Opelousas, coming back to this venue, coming back to this stadium, and then leading your team as a senior to the state championship, first time for the Bulldogs since 1995. Don't want to make other fans feel old, Cecilia fans feel old, but before I was even born. Yeah, it's been a while for the Bulldogs, but finally get that state championship. That's been a kind of elusive for them. They've had some great seasons, and finally get Diesel Solari, of course, had been a performance from him that was able to get it done. Completed 8 passes. He didn't really do that much throwing the ball, 69 yards passing, but the touchdown.
Weird game.
Yeah, weird game. But the touchdown he threw ended up being the game-winning touchdown at the end to Ellis Stewart. And then, he's going to do his damage on the ground. 18 carries, 148 yards, 2 touchdowns. They won the football game 35-32. It was back and forth between Jacob Crane and Diesel Solari. How about that? Our last 2 Gridiron Football Player of the Week winners or the 2 quarterbacks from that game, Jacob Crane and Diesel Solari, 35-32 win. And Diesel was the guy, as an 18 seed. And a lot of people thought that this could be a possibility with this team because of their talent, that the 18 seed was misseeding for them. But it's still a hard road to do what they just did. Win 4 straight games on the road against really good teams, and then beat the number 1 team in the Superdome. That's a long road, and then for Diesel Solari to lead that way, I guess they didn't need any gas. They just needed some diesel, right? I mean, Diesel to win the state championship. So Diesel Solari, congratulations, man. Well deserved, excellent football player. Long time coming. I know you've been on the short end of the stick a couple of times. But congratulations to Diesel Solari, Gridiron Football Player of the Week.
Yeah, this game was weird, and it's actually you could trace down like the specific production of this performance. Like 70% of it came from 2 plays: the big passing touchdown, the game winner to Ellis Stewart, and the 83-yard rushing touchdown. Or it wasn't a touchdown; it was an 83-yard run that got called down at the 1. That it took a couple of plays, but I think he ended up scoring the touchdown on that drive. This game was weird, so you didn't have a lot of consistent production from him, but he made the plays count that needed to. By the way, that 83-yard run, I believe, also a record. One of the many records broken this week in the Prep Classic was the longest run by a 3A or 4A school in the state championship game. So congratulations to him for that. He was electric, though. Even though he didn't get a whole lot done through the air, he was a little bit. This is a weird game where Ellis Stewart completed 3 of the passes. A weird game.
Yeah, we expected a lot of trickery.
We got a lot of it. We had a kickoff return, so there wasn't as much. The 35 points, some of them weren't scored by him. But the game, when he needed to make the plays to win the game, he made those plays. Diesel Solari to Ellis Stewart. That play is going to be enshrined in Cecilia football history forever. And for him to secure the victory for his team to finally hoist up the trophy for the state championship. But of course, just as important is to finally hoist up that Letterman's jacket.
Get that Letterman's jacket. Yeah,
just as valuable, of course. No, but on a serious note, congratulations to him, because this was a very long road. They won the state championship, and on this final week, again, you couldn't think of Every week it feels like, especially in the playoffs, it's been, oh yeah, the usual suspects. Dartez, David, Solari, all these sort of guys. And for one of them to finally get it, for him, these 2 past years, being on this list time after time after time, half a dozen times probably this year he's been on here in the 15 weeks. And for him to finally get the recognition he deserves to win Player of the Week in this final week of it, congratulations to Diesel, Solari, and everybody at Cecilia, but especially to the man who is our Gridiron Football Player of the Week.
Absolutely, Alex. Well said. This is our final Gridiron Football Player of the Week. So you got all the 15 nominees. You'll get your Letterman jacket patches sometime very soon. We'll let you know about that. And then obviously, most likely since it's bowl game time, I'm going to probably be pretty busy. So most likely Alex will be doing the interview with Diesel and Coach Gaines. It'll be one of us. For sure. So that will be posted tomorrow as y'all watching this. And then Daryl will also have the Gridiron Football Player of the Week article. You can go up and read more about Diesel's performance. But, Alex, we're done with Gridiron Football Player of the Week. Now we got to crunch the numbers, see who won Player of the Week, who is a heavy nominee, and who's actually played in our bowl game to kind of see who will be the final nominees. We'll have the Gridiron Football Player of the Year nominees out soon. I would say probably sometime in January, and then we'll have a 2-week, I think, voting process that will go and decide who will be our Gridiron Football Player of the Year.
Yep, I'm happy to be here, of course, just like every week. And last one we have, we'll get to the Player of the Year when we have the chance to have for the bowl game. We'll have a very busy couple of weeks. I'll probably get a chance to talk to Diesel and Coach Gaines tomorrow at some point, but for now, that's about it. So congratulations to all 16, I think, technically, Players of the Week we have had this season in our 15 weeks. We'll see all of them as well as a few others, see who else makes that final ballot for Player of the Year. But congratulations to all of them for their performances. But one last time, this has been Alex Allison for Gridiron Football Player of the Week, and I'll let Jace finish us off.
Yeah, guys, thank y'all for donating. Thank y'all for your countless number of votes. I appreciate every one of y'all. Even though the season might be over for the Player of the Week, we still encourage you to send donations in because all the money will be going towards the Gridiron Football All-American Bowl game. I know I would say that, give that a plug. It's going to be on Monday, December 30th. Make sure to get your tickets. They're on our website, gridironfootballusa.com. A lot of these guys we talked about on the show, they will be playing in the bowl game. So a lot of those names will be playing in the bowl game. So make sure to check those guys out. Make sure to support Gridiron Football so we can continue to do this each and every year and giving athletes that one final shot, an extra look, for those college coaches so that they can get a scholarship and have a chance to play at the next level. Well, for Alex Allison, I'm Jason Stern. It's been a fun year for Gridiron Football Player of the Week show. And then we'll have one more other one as we'll announce our Gridiron Football Player of the Year finalists and obviously our Gridiron Football Player of the Year. We'll see y'all guys later.